Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Welcome to Hort Culture. We're live on the scene. That's only funny if you are watching this
the video
on
yeah.
YouTube, because I feel like...
then I don't think it's funny.
Oh, well, you know, Brett, I laugh at your jokes.
That's your problem. That's one of your character
That's
flaws.
like the second time today somebody was just about something random be like, that sounds like a you problem. And I was like, wow.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. It was
Yikes.
funny. I'm sorry.
And from my teammates, the reason I bring that up is because I am currently podcasting outside and I got my sunglasses on and I'm feeling with my mic, feeling very news anchory.
You look very cool.
You're on the scene.
I'm live on the scene.
Live action.
Hort Culture podcast.
A recent cut in color that's up in, or maybe just cut. It's up
highlights.
Up now, but recent
cut.
You look ready to go.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe, and it's the perfect vibe to talk about seed saving, which is what we're doing today, folks. Talking about them seeds.
Anybody that has waited long enough to save seeds at this point, I admire you. I get so, I guess I just basically, I cut my tomatoes down at a point. You know, I get so tired of them producing. I mean,
right.
Or slowly producing. They look so ratty. I just dispatch with them. So kudos to you home gardeners that if you're seed savers, you're letting your vines and the fruit on those vines really, really mature. But I need to cut them down usually when they start to look bad. I don't know if it's a switch over my mind to fall or what. I don't know.
I think of it as like if you accidentally didn't cut it or you went away or you forgot about it, whatever. It's just for seed saving, baby. Just like when all your weeds come up, it's just a cover crop. You're just going to till it in. It's all fine.
You just mow it. It's
so to follow Alexis. She's just like, whatever works, man. Just call it a cover crop and roll with it. You forgot to harvest those flowers? That's okay. You left it for the pollinators, and they left you with some seed that you're going to now save. So
don't call it a cover crop. Right. It's been there for years.
Been there, taking care of itself all this time. And that's what plants do. I was so I guess inspired when I was younger because I noticed these tomatoes, they were just where we had the tomato patch the year before, especially if we rotated away from it. I mean, I was like, where are all these baby plants the next year coming from? Nobody seeded them here. And my dad's like, that's just nature at work. And I guess there's a lot of truth to that.
Life finds a way. Right?
Life finds a way. So I'm like, if Mother Nature can do it, how hard could it be? Oh, was I wrong?
I occasionally get some compost and it'll have, some tomato seeds in it from wherever. Yeah. And I always I dig it up and I pot it or I put it in my garden or whatever just to see what it does. And it's a great example of, these random seedling and what it becomes versus like what I've planted and that's like of seed saving. One of the things is you don't always get back what you think you're going to get.
Right. So, why do we want to, keep the seeds and stuff, right? Like we think about that. One, you might have a tasty tomato that you discover, but there's some rules with seed saving, as we've already kind of talked about. But like we want to keep these seeds because, maybe it's something that has been passed in our families for a year. They can be very like kind of a family heirloom. Right. And that kind of plays into
that's
the
a big
kind of seeds you want to keep, like the heirloom seeds. Like, ooh, look at that.
I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think
people take a lot of pride in that, I think.
And maybe people are aware or they're not aware, but like Kentucky has a huge heirloom seed tradition across the state. But I think a lot of people are more familiar with the eastern part of the state having about a variety of different crops. So yeah, I think that's we were out, there's been some flooding in the eastern part of the state over the last, off and on for the last half a decade, basically. And one of the things that was really sad was that a lot of people lost their family saved seeds.
Yeah.
And there's been some efforts from folks out there at the Robinson station that hopefully we'll have some guests on from there in the next few years. I mean, the next few weeks. Um, but they were trying to grow some seed, save, basically grow seed to save to then redistribute out to the community there, to get that heirloom process going again. So I think that's hugely
Super
important part.
cool. And there's so much pride behind families, whether it was an apple tree that somebody did not know what the variety was, or it was a unique variety that a family named, or whether it was a favorite purple tomato or a greasy bean and all of their variations. I mean, there's a lot of pride that families and individuals took in these unique fruits and vegetables that they kind of claimed as protected and brought forward one generation to the next. It's really cool, the history behind some of these. And I know,
Telling a story.
yes, there's a story behind those. And I know Tennessee and some of the Carolinas and areas, Brett mentioned specifically the Appalachian region or mountainous regions, they have a long history of that, but just history across the state of Kentucky in doing that. And I think it's super cool because of the care and pride that kind of goes into that. People that have brought these things forward for whatever reason. I know years ago, I can imagine 100 years ago, it was probably from a very pragmatic, kind of very practical perspective
Had to
of
do it.
why, yes, you absolutely had to do it. And that would have been at a time where there wasn't a lot of hybrids. We'll talk more about that later on, I'm sure. Wasn't a lot of hybrids. Everything was open pollinated, came back true to type. So it was, you could save them and they come back with the same qualities and characteristics year after year. So
I
cool.
have
So cool.
this year, I at a seed swap got some celosia seed, and it was just like labeled Forkland comb celosia because it was from Forkland, Kentucky. And
Yeah.
I talked to the person who brought that seed, and she said, "Well, it's just I got it from somebody else who got it from somebody else in Forkland, and it's just a plant that's been coming up." So I'm expecting a very traditional, old school, like bright celosia color. Originally, they were all kind of like circus colors, like really obnoxious reds and stuff. So I'm kind of imagining something like this, very traditional. And I'll post a picture of it, but I have been so pleasantly surprised, and it's so exciting. And I imagine little stories when I pick it of like, who wanted this or had this in their yard. It is the most beautiful, like mauvey pink. Never seen this color before. I'm obsessed with it, and I'm gonna try and save some seed because, like, I have to have this forever. It's just the perfect shade that you don't find in the catalogs, and
Would you
now I
call
have
it
to
a
have it
dusty
forever.
pink?
It's a little more burgundy than that, but it's in that like spectrum of dusty pink. Like, so if you go a little bit deeper, a little more darker, then yeah, it's like right in there. And I have been just in awe of what it looks like, and I just got it at a sweet seed swap, so
Yeah.
fun.
Saving seeds can be fun, and you can get some, like, cool things like that, right? I mean,
Use your imagination. You make up little
right,
stories as you pick it.
right.
Well,
Or
why
give it
else?
unique names and
I'm
make it
yeah,
your
I'm
own.
not familiar with the other, like some of the other. I've mainly
Yeah.
been aware of the
Mhm.
sociocultural reasons for sharing or for saving seed. Do there other like do other people do it for other reasons besides it's cool?
Besides it's cool, I mean, that's how we got a lot of the varieties that we have, and is seed saving. If you think about like I always of course go back to flowers, but peonies, all the breeding to this very day being done in peonies is from people crossing them, and then they save that seed and grow that seed out. And so we see that with tomatoes, we see that with just about everything. There's very there are fruits and things like that that have come from sports, which is just like the plant magically creates something, like literally it feels like magically create something different. Like the ruby red grapefruit is a good example of that, or certain apples will do that. But I think a lot of the things we've got these days, people tend to think they're GMOs when really they're just a product of people who have saved seed and done their own little
Plant
breeding
breeding.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that with, I think when you look at, like, corn, especially corn being one of those crops that is GMO, but if you look back at, what the original ears of corn looked like with crossbreeding that's,
Yeah. It
hundreds
didn't
of
look like that.
years, right? It looks very different, and that was all just, breeding those plants, crossing them. So
Oh my gosh. that reminds me, we have a new, maybe we should have him on the podcast, a new faculty member in the Department of Horticulture here at UK. And I can't believe I just blanked on his name. I got so excited to tell you about all the things he told me that I
Manoj.
just, yes, Manoj.
Manoj.
He
I
is
never
from
heard him say it.
Nepal. Yeah, he's really awesome. And he did some research. He's a plant breeder specifically for nutrition here at UK, but he's done a lot of plant breeding in the tomato world. And they were able to like get a hold of genomes or something from like what tomatoes were originally before humans got involved to breed
Wow.
them. And they were able to look at all of these different stages of like the tomato breeding and how it changed, like the flavor profile changed to become what what we think of tomatoes today. And like we bred it to be savory, like it's, and you know, amongst
It's
color and all of these other things, but like from a flavor specific, we did that, humans did that and bred them to be more savory and go in that direction. And I was just like, he was telling me that and I was in awe
it's
on the floor,
so
so exciting.
yeah, it's so interesting to see that, to see how plants and everything originally started out. Because, like, you know, you said you think about flowers, but I also just thought about poinsettias to be like going like way off kind of like topic here. But there's pictures of, you know, what the original poinsettia looked like when it was discovered in I believe was in Mexico
Yeah, I
is
think
where they
so.
originate
Yeah.
from. And it looks nothing like, I mean, it looks like,
No.
you can say it's a poinsettia, but it's like compared to
The
what we
leaves
see
look similar.
now
Yeah.
being sold in the stores, like you would be like, is there something wrong with that thing? Right?
Yeah.
But that's just how it originally looked, you know?
Shout out to Dr. Manoj Sapkota is his name.
Thank you,
He's
Sapkota. I
in,
was sorry, Manoj, if you hear this, I'm sorry. I was just so excited about the cool things you told me that I
we'll
completely
have
blanked.
to have him on. You know,
He's
Jessica,
awesome. Yeah.
hearing you talk about the kind of pre-Columbian exchange, as they call it, you know, before things were taken back. When you think of Italian food, Alexis, Italian. The other day I was eating some Greek food and they had tomatoes in there. And, you know, you close your eyes and think about what Italian food is. One of those, you know, essential pieces is the tomato, which is something that came from the New World and was brought from that area, from South America and, you know, Central North America back to Europe, probably through the process of seed saving. Because, you know, the journey was so long, the plant would have probably died on the way or like gone through its full life cycle. And so I think that, you know, that idea of like seed saving is part of this, you know, in that case, it's a mixed history of colonial exploitation along with cultural sharing. But I think it's been an important part of just like when you go to a new place and you have some seeds from home, there's also that, you know, aspect of it too, that it's a way to create a garden. There's a lot of refugee and other just immigrant folks in the United States who are doing these gardening projects, and when they can get their hands on seed or bring seed from their eggplant or their style of cassava or whatever it is, it's really cool. And so it's just another element of that, what you were talking about earlier, Jess.
It's heritage.
Yeah. Yep. It's the heritage
And,
with it.
we think about art and stuff as that, but like seeds are, and food, we know food is, but like food comes from something, right? So seeds, but yeah, that's like a whole, we're getting off. We're talking about like how you might actually do it today, but that's
right.
just
So
the why is so important.
if you do have some tomatoes hanging on, right? Like, what is the process we go about doing this? You know, there's a couple rules with seed saving, and they've kind of been mentioned already about heirloom versus like a hybrid, right? If it's a hybrid tomato that you have grown, you know, to keep in mind with how things cross, that's not going to come back true. And Alexis, and then you guys can elaborate more because you have more of that.
I always look for those keywords.
Horticulture
botany
knowledge,
brain.
the botany brain.
So like what is that, you mean like what is a hybrid versus an heirloom versus some other things? Is that because I could use some insight.
Do you want to roll with that, or do you want
who are you pointing to?
Oh, I'm pointing. Yeah, you can't see who I'm pointing to, Alexis, because she has the botany brain. You can't tell which person I'm pointing to where you're at on my screen.
The botany brain. I usually use the like labradoodle example for like hybrids. So a labradoodle is an example of a hybrid where it's a poodle and a Labrador that have been crossed to create a labradoodle.
Is that where the name comes from?
Yes. And then a labradoodle and a labradoodle make another labradoodle, and so you get these, like, 1st and 2nd generations, so you may see,
F1s,
like
F2s,
yeah,
yeah.
F1, F2, and what that's referring to, if you ever see it on a packet, is just, like, the generation of hybrid it is. So is it a poodle and a is its parent a poodle and a Labrador, or a labradoodle and a labradoodle? And so, that's
And
kind
this
of,
is hybrid.
one. Huh?
Yeah,
This is
hybrid.
hybrids.
Right, hybrids, right, versus, like, an heirloom, is gonna be true to seed. It is the parent, it is the poodle, it is the Labrador,
Purebred.
nothing creates it, and so it's going to come back true
Yeah.
unless it's something that can be cross-pollinated, which totally flubs up everything. Not every plant, will cross with another plant, but, like, that's how you can have a yellow squash plant beside a watermelon plant. If you save seed from either one of those, you will have a squashamelon the next year, right? So, again, a
I'm
hybrid.
experienced in growing squash from,
Squash.
Yeah.
yeah, from squash and, gourds being next to each other.
Yeah.
Gourd.
We always look for 2 keywords, either heirloom or open pollinated, usually on seed
Mhm,
packs. If you're reading seed packs, and the danger words, if you're a seed saver, is, as
mhm,
far as seed saving goes, true to type, is the word hybrid, or anytime you see like F1, which an F1, as Alexis said, that's the first generation result of the cross, and those are
mhm,
premium products, but it's only true to type for that F1 generation. Those are hybrids. So anything says hybrid or F1, those are things that you have to have a specific parental cross, or it
mhm,
does not come back true to type,
mhm.
regardless of the pollination. But the easy things that we save in gardens are usually self-pollinated. That's the
Yeah.
keywords, self-pollinated or heirloom. That's your giveaway that those are seeds you can probably focus on. That's your classic big three, which is what? That's
Right.
tomatoes, beans,
Mhm.
and peppers.
Yep.
And you could put peas in there too. If you there's more of a history of folks saving peas in other parts of the country, I know, but
Mhm.
peas fall under that too. They're pretty easy to save, aren't they, Jessica? Peas are.
Yes, the peas and like you said, the big 3 I think about are the beans, peppers, and the tomatoes for sure. Versus your other, I would say your riskier ones of saving are gonna be any of those cucurbits,
Mhm.
corn
Anything wind
being
pollinated.
wind pollinated,
Yeah.
right? All of those are gonna be a lot harder to get it to come back true. Now you might discover something new and great, but, then again, you're like,
Well, I was
I
gonna
might not
ask,
get this the next year,
as
you
a
know?
as
Yeah.
a former precocious child and pain to the many of the adults in my life, I haven't grown out of some of my habits. And one of my habits, or one of my, things is like, uh, yeah, I kind of believe you, but I kind of don't believe you. Like, what's going to happen? Like, when
Well,
the
that's tough with the F1 hybrids.
if
That's
you
a
I
save
can
the
tell you I can
if you
tell you my
save the hybrid
experience. I
seed, does it just not grow, or does it what
Yeah.
happens?
no.
So,
Sometimes it's
I told you I usually let one tomato seedling I dig up and save that's compost, and, I don't think that it's going to produce at all, this plant that I don't know anything about. It's huge. The plant is massive. And it's right next to and being treated the same way as some that I grew from seed and some heirlooms that I grew from seed. And it's twice as big, but I don't think is it will fruit. And it has you
I
know,
actually clocked that the other day when I was over
mm,
yeah.
there. I saw your
yeah.
giant tomato
Yeah.
plant with nothing
I
on
it's
it.
just, experimenting and seeing what it is, and it's, like, rambling all over the place, and it finally has some blooms, which in theory means it could produce fruit, but compared to its neighbor tomato that's got nice tomatoes on it, I don't think it will even produce, and that's most likely because someone had a hybrid, like Big Boy or something like that, and, it fell and just got turned in or something,
That's
so.
what confuses gardeners, because sometimes with hybrids or F1s, there's a dilution effect, and the F2 cross, the second generation, may be 99% of the desirable characteristics, but I guarantee you, with a hybrid, it'll be a dilution factor every single year. That second generation, if you try to save in hybrid seed, it may be 95% true to type, desirable characteristics, but it stands an equal chance of being 35% desirable
It's
characteristics.
your like Punnett
Yeah.
square.
Yeah, you just never
going
know.
back. Speaking of peas, your
Shut out, Gregor.
Punnett square.
Shout out, Gregor Mendel.
So you're team Punnett, not team Punit. I start arguments with that all the time. Punit square versus Punnett
I've never
square.
heard Punit square.
Never realized that Ray was a Punit pundit.
I am a Punit pundit. I am, and it was this old English botanist that was a speaker from England that came to Brea and did special topics in my advanced botany course, and he pronounced it Punit, and I was like, have I been wrong all this time?
He probably also said clematis, so I don't feel.
He did say clematis,
and he probably had like a diagram on the behind him of his Punit square that was made out of aluminium.
Yes, aluminium. Yes,
so
I think so. But
he probably called things bins and boots.
It's strange nomenclature.
So anyway, we've gotten off on a lot of exciting things about plant genetics and hybrids and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line that I'm hearing from you all is, if it says it's an heirloom, if it says it's open pollinated, and you know that, then it's a good candidate for saving seed.
And then if
it is a hybrid, don't waste your time just getting new hybrids.
Because the variability is just not worth it. The investment and if it's a self-pollinated plant like a tomato, I mean, those are super easy. Those are like the easiest. Jessica already mentioned the easiest of the easiest.
Those are some of the classic varieties, like the Brandywine or a Cherokee Purple, or like those types of things tend to fall into that category. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love them.
You will sometimes get a very excited bumblebee that will accidentally cross-pollinate those plants because they can get in there. The flowers are small, but if you want something that's true to type with very little work, you want something that is close-pollinated.
Not to get too much in the weeds on that, but it's fascinating. Even though a plant has both male and female flowers, it's not self-fertile. So genetically, I mean, to distill things down, in simple terms, like it can't cross with itself, but it can cross with itself very similar of another type. So it keeps the type very tightly, controlled. So it's interesting.
Nature's crazy.
It is when you get
amazing.
into it.
But if you're wanting to save seed, and we're at the point, we could talk, maybe we do a whole spring episode about like how to keep things true to type. So zinnias, for example, are open pollinated, which means if you have a red one next to a yellow one, in theory, your square, they can cross pollinate and give you orange ones and more red ones and more yellow ones, but you won't know until they grow, right? So we could have like a whole session on sort of like how to keep, your corn from being cross-pollinated, what the distance is, but that's more of like a spring chat. There's nothing you can do about it at this point. So
you're going to get what you're going to get now.
Yeah.
Right. This point in the season, it's exciting because now you're like, ooh, what am I going to get? So do we have like those of you who may have done some seed saving of various things, any tips to give people and what you saved?
I would look at, I guess a question I get a lot is about with them is like, how long are these going to last? Or kind of like the storage wise, like how, like once you harvest them. So like just thinking of like a tomato, and I've seen this done several times. A lot of times with a tomato, you're going to like often look, I keep hopping around, but you're going to like look for the healthiest plant possible. Let's start there. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to look for a very healthy plant. You don't want to go out there, even though your garden is probably going downhill at this point, maybe, unless you're like super
saying that for my own benefit because she recently did a farm visit for me and I was like,
no, it is the time of year, right? But you're going to try to pick from the healthiest plant. You don't want to pick anything that potentially could have disease on it that could carry over into that next year, or maybe not make those seeds viable, or that can carry over and you're just spreading disease around your yard, your garden the following year. So find something from the healthiest one, a nice, good tomato. Maybe it's a little past its prime, right, to eat, but that's okay. And then for the tomato, you're just basically going to cut it up and let it set for a couple days. Have it sliced, let that seeds like kind of dry out naturally around the tomato. Well, I can't talk. Gunk innards.
The pulp, like the pulp.
Yes.
I like gunk better.
Yeah,
I like gunk. Yeah.
I like gunk.
Yeah. Before
Let
this
tasting
is a
them.
chill podcast.
It's very chill today.
Gunk.
We're all over the place. But before you just take them and keep them in a cool, dry location. Also, write down what they are. That's very important as well.
Key.
Yeah.
Make sure you store them, old spice bottles, a container you can store them in versus being out in the open. I say this from experience, not from me, but my husband saved hot peppers and left them laying out in an area where mice enjoyed them all winter long. So, make sure you put them in some sort of container once they are completely uh,
Ideally, like an air. I mean,
airtight.
it could be airtight, but like if you're not gonna go airtight, if you can put them in a safe space that's not gonna get eaten by mice, a lot of the time you can keep them in like a paper bag or something that breathes. So it kind of has to be one extreme or the other. The benefit of the airtight, of course, is that you are not going to have rodent problems, but also if they aren't super dry, they can rot, right? So the other thing that like once you do have them dry and you have them in a container of some kind, then you want to keep them generally cool. Is for most people, like throwing them in the crisper drawer of the fridge is going to be a great place, and mine is currently full of seeds and cheese.
Of course it is.
So just to back up and for me to visualize. So you take like a tomato in this case, and you're saying you cut it up and let it kind of essentially rot a little bit. The fruit itself rot a little bit in place. And
3
then
to
are
5
you
days, 2 to 4 days. I've heard it both ways, but yeah.
And then you're then removing the individual little seeds from that and storing those, or you're storing the whole thing?
There's a
well, I was gonna say, my experience has been removing the seeds, maybe spreading them out a little bit, maybe for an extra day, like on a paper towel or something,
yeah.
and then I'm just storing the seeds, like I said, in
Gotcha.
a container, or like Alexis mentioned, the paper bag that's breathable.
Some people will add just a little bit of water, and the good seeds will. Don't ask me how it works, but there's a definite reason. Add just a little bit of water to that gel, and the good seeds tend to sink down, so you can discard the gel, and the good seeds will go to the bottom almost every time, and that's a good way to weed that
It's
out.
because they have an embryo and they're heavier.
Kind of the egg yolk effect. But it's interesting that gel is, I mean, it keeps the seeds from germinating, but you're not worried about that this time of year. That's Mother Nature taking care of the seeds. But yeah, soak that 3 to 5 days.
You also may run into, don't freak out, because the amount of times I've seen people post on Facebook or send me videos, photos of their tomatoes, they cut it open and the seeds are germinating.
Yeah.
That is not chemical warfare. That's called vivipary. It's a fun word to say.
I knew that word.
Vivipary, and that is a very natural thing in nature. It has nothing to do with GMOs. It has nothing to do with spraying around pesticides. So I just felt like I had to say that in case.
It's a
of course, all of our listeners know that that's not true, but so that you can a new fun word you can tell other people.
It's a misunderstood interpretation of the seasons and what's going on.
Yes.
The plant the seed thought, okay, it's moist, it's kind of warm, let's go.
Right.
Let's
reproduce.
It's like when a baby comes out early, it's like, I'm ready, let's do this.
Yeah, preemie. It's a preemie. It's just a preemie.
Just a preemie.
So I guess that's when I'm saving seeds. That's sort of how I divide it in my head. Kind of the wet processed seeds, which are what else? I mean, cucumber. I mean, those are more advanced. I'm not saying save those, but things like tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, melons. That's the wet processed stuff, and the dry processed stuff would be like what?
Beans, peas,
green beans. Yeah, exactly.
Those things that can dry out on the plant in the shell. So you can kind of forget about it, and then when you're ready to terminate them because they're all dried up, you go, "Oh, look, free plants, free seeds."
Just rip them all in and take them and pop them out of their shells.
If they're rattly, if you hear that rattle, very good sign for the dry process seed savers. When you hear that rattle, that means full maturity has been reached.
What about peppers? Jessica, you said Sean's done some peppers before. Was there anything key about peppers that he latched onto that it was ready to harvest for seed?
Well, if you are doing spicy peppers, wear gloves.
Oh yeah,
from experience.
Just a reminder, wear gloves.
But you should allow them to completely ripen on the plant, if possible, until they turn like a nice red color. You want like fully mature, right? And sometimes that's a little hard because they can get a little over mature.
Yeah.
You're gonna say something, Alexis?
I was gonna say what do we know about green bell peppers? They turn red eventually. So
Yes. Yes.
Takes a
And
don't
while.
Alexis
a lot
does
of
not
people
like them. And Alexis does not like
and
to eat them.
I do not like them. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, look at Brett pulling out some knowledge there. Yes, green bell peppers people tend to think will only ever be green. Not true. They will ripen fully and they will become red. So,
Mhm.
fun
Yeah.
fact
Well,
there
but
for you.
the interesting thing about that, just for people's kind of, so there are, all of them will turn red, but there are
Correct.
certain ones that are bred in order to be harvested green, and if you let them
Mhm.
turn red, they will get like woody and
Mhm.
gross. And
Yeah.
there are other ones that are meant to be harvested red, and
Mhm.
they need to be grown until they ripen, but they will look, and many times they will look green that whole time. And so it's
Mhm.
just interesting. And like
Yeah.
a poblano pepper and an ancho pepper are fundamentally the same thing. They're just, one is ripe, and an ancho is ripe and then smoked.
Mhm.
And it's the same way with a chipotle pepper, is a fully mature jalapeno that has also then been smoked. So that's what chipotle and
Mhm.
poblano are. They're these different stages of the same pepper. It's just that fun little tidbit.
And a little, something else about peppers that kind of goes with that spring talk as well,
Mhm.
that they can sometimes are usually self-pollinating. It's usually like nothing to worry about. However, as you can tell, I have a lot of experience with spicy peppers because apparently that is what we do. Um, they can. They will sometimes you can get a spicy, bell pepper.
Looks like a bell pepper, but tastes like a jalapeno.
You can get yeah, but I'm talking about, like, Ghost and, all of those things, and
Ooh-wee.
In
because the hot pepper gene is more dominant,
dominant.
so it'll show up. So gotta keep that in mind with those, and again, even if you're saving seeds from bell peppers, it's a good idea to wear gloves and wash your hands and stuff afterward. Don't touch your face when doing those, but really simple to save those because you're not leaving them in that pulp or anything because 'cause you're just taking them out, let them dry on a paper towel, and then you're good to go with them.
Flowers are usually even easier for any of you interested in that because you don't have any juicy pulp that you have to deal with. So, flowers are usually something that you're going to wait until you can physically, most of the time, physically see the seed starting to shed or the flower is brown. And that means it is either pollinated or itself or has been pollinated, depending on what kind it is. And then you can harvest that and, you know, if you're worried about one thing, if I know I really want to harvest a certain flower head because that plant just was way healthier than any of the other ones and I want seed from that, I will take a little drawstring, like uh, people know them as like little jewelry bags. They're the little very fine mesh bags. And I will use that to cover a flower. They come in a bunch of different sizes,
Ah,
even when it's like, healthy and not ready to be harvested. Because number one, it's a visual impact for me to make sure that I cut that for that purpose.
reminder.
It also helps keep any bad insects from going in there and destroying that seed or it being eaten by something. And then when you cut it, all that seed that might be shedding is staying in that little bag. So you can just cut it and hang it up and forget about it until you're ready for it, as long as it's in like a cool, dry place. And so flowers are pretty easy. They do often cross pollinate really easy. Again, that's a spring talk issue, but they're easy to harvest and usually pretty successful to start the next year. Not everything is easy to save and be have good what do they put in seed packets? The germination rate. They
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't all have good
Can I
germination rate.
can I ask you a question about that? So, on the flowers,
Mhm.
you know, when we have vegetables like a tomato or a pepper or whatever, there's a flower that then gets pollinated, and
Mhm.
generally by the time the thing is ready to harvest, the pepper or the tomato or whatever, the flower petals are gone, and it's just
Mhm.
kind of that base that has been pollinated and turned into something else. So with a flower, when you're saving seed for a flower, by the time you're saving the seed, are like most of the petals are completely gone, and it's just this like fruiting body thing that's there, or like what is? I realize it's probably different depending, but I
Yeah, it's
never.
yes and no. So it is very species dependent. So like a zinnia, the petal will stay connected to the seed, um, basically until you take it off most of the time. It rarely comes off by itself, versus something like celosia, which is related to pigweed. It's an amaranth. Those little tiny seeds just kind of fall out of the floral body. It's not really petals, so pretty much everything is different.
Yeah.
So there's no easy answer to that, but if you're not sure, you can like shake it over a bucket, and if things dislodge, it's probably like ready to be harvested.
Yeah, I just think of the flower as like this reproductive structure that is the
Mhm.
precursor to seeds, and then some other thing follows behind. And
Mhm.
had never thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
Brief side note: there's a song I'd like to recommend to our audience called "Cool Dry Place" by Katie Kirby that reminded me of that. Katie Kirby, "Cool Dry Place." It reminds me of this time of year.
Proper seed storage.
It's, keep me in a cool dry place. Those are your seeds singing to you through Katie Kirby.
Remember, your seeds are living; they're not dead.
Mhm.
They respire, so they have respiration. So slow that down. You don't want that to happen real fast.
So I'm
And I guess,
storing,
Jessica, that makes them last longer if you
yeah.
put them
Yeah.
in that cool. Is that what it is? Yeah,
Yeah.
you slow down
And
respiration.
some seeds are longer lived than others, right?
Yeah. Do you have some
Um,
numbers there for some of those?
so not necessarily numbers off the top of my head, but
Yeah, I can't. I don't.
like we talked about already, like tomatoes and stuff. They're like why they're so easy to keep, but then they also store for a really long time.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think of what other
I
ones.
always think of it like a rule of thumb as, and again, it's a rule of thumb here. It's not perfect. The bigger the seed, the less like it feels the opposite. The bigger the seed is, the less storage time it has. So like corn has some of the like is only like a year. Like you really want to use that
Mhm.
first. Like beans and stuff, they kind of break the rule, but in general, the bigger the seed, the less time you have to store it, which seems the opposite of what you should be, because you're like, well, there's more
Yeah,
food there, but
more
it's
surface
kind
area
of
too.
more
Like
surface area. Yeah, but
dogs and dudes, the bigger they are, the softer they are.
I'm trying to find this. I think it's Knott's
that's why I
Handbook.
have corgis.
Exactly.
So
I
yeah,
have
like
Bully old bear, 85 pounder.
I'm
so
trying to
like
find
a
the
general
beans.
rule was like of 5 years or more, right? You could get out from
Mm,
like a tomato. But then yet I know people who are like, I've had these seeds for 15, 20
yeah.
years that I've been
Yeah,
using, right?
germination rate may
Um,
vary.
the germination rate may vary
Right.
versus like your medium lived seeds that are more some of those peas, maybe some squash and stuff, they're at least you're maybe lucky to get 3 years out of them. But then that,
Mhm.
like Alexis said, especially corn, onion, is usually what you get 1 year out of it. And then
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's then you really don't need to put all your
On the
faith into
flower
it, right?
perspective, just to update, if you're thinking about what seeds you're going to buy and you grow flowers, straw flower is not great germination rates from year to year. So you can buy a packet of seed and 95% of them germinate out of that pack. And even if you store them perfectly, they are not super viable. And if you don't be like me and run into situations where there's no good straw flower seed to be found because everybody has bought it and you thought you had some, and you did technically, but it does not germinate. So sometimes it's just not your fault.
So as far as like germination rates and reliability of this and stuff, I'm just thinking like there's a potential that some people would want to do this to like save money on seed and to have basically, I mean, like the old way that there's a whole saying about short-sighted strategy of eating into reserves is called eating your seed corn, because you're supposed to be saving that for the next year and not eating it. Is there like in your all's experience, do you think there is like an economically a reliable enough process that economically you would rely on this, or is it more just kind of a fun story and fun vibe?
I think the economics would be. I mean, I'll give a case in point that's sort of nuanced. Brett is, growing up, greasy beans. They brought double of what half runners or Romas would bring. And for us, it was economics because we had old. I guess it was called old fashioned. I think white greasy bean it was called, whatever version of greasy bean it was, but it brought double the money. So for us to save those seeds, and people would ask for those by name because not very many people had them. My dad didn't share those with anybody. So we sort of had the market cornered on those guys. I mean, people could, of course, buy those, but my dad was not selling the mature ones, so nobody would get the seeds. He was very careful about this, but for us, it was economics. We had a unique product, but now I know that's not the typical case. He also saved it because his family had those in his family for generations. But that was a greasy bean, and it was worth a lot when we sold those at market for a few people around that knew what they were looking for. So for us, it was practical and it had an economic impact. But as far as working with people in general, it seems like a point of pride,
Mhm.
more so than an economic thing. Just from my personal observations there at the office currently, just people in general. There are some farmers market people that save open pollinated varieties that are heirloom because they're not readily available year to year consistently, or the orders are placed so
Mhm.
far out you'd have to order them 2 years in advance, and they
Mhm.
they keep them for that reason. So I guess it just depends, but more so for like a pride perspective than anything else. I
For
think.
flowers, people who run across certain colors or forms that they like, there's um a huge push in flowers that there didn't used to be for breeding efforts, for different colors and forms of things. So there's just a big movement for seed saving in that way. And so I think if you had something special, yes, it could be very economical. Or
Yeah.
if that seed is really expensive because it's super special and hard to
Hmm.
find, then yeah, of course. But really, from a homeowner standpoint, probably not. It's again point of pride. It's exciting. From a farming standpoint, maybe if it was special, but I
Yeah.
couldn't see myself saving seed from the everyday thing when I can buy a packet of it. I know the germination rate. I know it's been treated properly, and it costs, even if it were to cost $10, it is going to save me a lot of time and effort. Um, I couldn't produce that much seed for $10 because it's a lot to process a seed. Like if you ever
Hmm.
process a tomato, you'll be like, was this what I wanted to do?
Yeah,
Maybe
and I
not.
mean it takes like to me the thing, yeah, there's the time and the energy and everything else, but there's also the big R word of risk. That at
Mhm.
every stage along the process, you have the mice come in and eat the seed, or
Yeah.
they do this or do that, or you put all the seed out that you thought was good and it's actually not viable and none of it comes up and you're too late to
Yep.
order and it's sold out
Yep.
everywhere. Like that makes me nervous. But I think one of the areas I've heard seed saving and some of this stuff come up is there it's not a monolith of cultural practice, but there are people on a spectrum from what we might call preppers all the way to people who are just sort of skeptical of some of the sustainability of some of our long-term
Mhm.
systems, to say in a world where you can buy seed for $10 a pack, it makes no sense. But I think, based on what I'm seeing, that maybe that's not gonna be the case for forever. And so I want to know how to seed save in order
Mhm.
to support my homestead or those types of things. It's just an interesting cultural phenomenon of the.
Mhm.
I think there's always been preppers. Like there's always
Mhm.
been people who think that this is
We
the
just didn't
end
have
or this
TV
is
shows
the
about them.
whatever. Yeah, we just didn't have
We just know about them more
have
now.
History Channel pseudo documentary shows about them and all of
You're
that
talking
stuff.
about my
But
family, Brent.
but I mean, I think that there is a reasonable discussion to be had about, like, are there these skills associated with self sufficiency that we're just losing through a marketplace of convenience, and what does it mean? Like, it's one thing to choose not to do it when the option is there to learn, but if this is becomes a lost art, a lost practice, then suddenly we don't really even have the option anymore. And so I think that's an interesting part of the seed saving
I
conversation that
enjoy
we.
this discussion. Like what kicked it off years ago for me was with master gardeners, but it sparked from a botany like education standpoint. It's a wonderful botany lesson. And
Mhm.
it's a great kind of sounding board for people exchanging ideas. Well, why can't we save this, or why shouldn't we, or why can we save this and not that, and the life expectancy and all of that. It's a great lesson in botany, if nothing else, that
Mhm.
helps. It's always good to have a good foundation for home gardeners or commercial operations. That's what one of the reasons I love the seed saving topic for me personally is it's just great to compare and contrast. Yeah, economically, is it always worth it? Well, no, but it's we're in the business of adult education for the most part, at least in my neck of the woods, and I think it's a great discussion to have for home corners.
And hopefully it will never be totally lost, because we have people
Yeah,
like Jessica who are literally planning a
they're
class
doing
on
it.
this. And so she is putting that out there for people who are interested, and will
Love it.
probably continue doing it as long as people say, "Hey." One or two people can say, "Hey," and then, you keep offering it.
I love it.
I
Love it.
will also note there are several seed exchanges in the state and across the region that usually happen in the late winter, early spring, and so there at least for the last number of years was one in Pikeville,
Hmm.
Kentucky. There's one up in, I believe, somewhere in southern Ohio. But they're all over the place. These seed exchanges. I know that one of our extension agents, Amanda Sears, organized a seed library down in the Richmond, Madison County area, and so there are opportunities even if you don't want to save your seed, or you don't have something that you're growing that you could save right now. Next year, instead of just going on the seed catalog, you could theoretically go to one of these seed exchanges and pick up some seed and think about growing it.
I know the libraries
Check
do
your
that
local
too.
library. Yeah, a lot of them are
Do the
starting to
heirlooms. Yeah,
do that,
yeah.
and have stuff. We did one in Boyle County too, and
I
have
think
some great volunteers who would love
Hart
to see you
County,
have that seed.
Yeah, and
Boyle,
there's
Clark,
some
Bourbon.
treatments and things that you can do to make sure that no disease gets spread, and maybe we can
Mhm.
cover that next spring. But
Yeah, we can at least drop
I-
some publications in there on, like,
Yeah,
at home seed treatments.
because
yeah,
only certain
And
diseases transfer through the seed, but you want to
right.
avoid those. So.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we can put those in the show
So
notes for you.
so to briefly recap what I think I learned. So there are the juicy seeds and the dry seeds. The juicy ones are the ones
The
that have the gunk.
gunky.
Yeah.
And specifically, tomatoes require a specific process to get rid of the gunk. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if it's a wet one, you kind of want to leave it in that in that fruiting body to for a couple of days to just steep. Then remove that, spread the stuff out, uh, let it dry like on a paper towel or something like that, and then transfer it either to a breathable paper bag if you can protect it from other things, or an airtight container, and then store
Mhm.
it in a cool, dry place. Is that?
Cool, dry place.
And then for the dry ones, they're a little bit easier because they kind of process themselves into the dried seed. And so that's peas and beans and, dent corn and stuff like that, that it dries out and becomes this, hard capsule of plant magic that you can also then store in a similar way. When you're selecting plants, you want to choose a healthy plant,
Mhm.
ideally free of disease, and maybe with some of the characteristics that you're, big fruit or the right
Yeah.
whatever. And for flowers, Alexis, can you give us the recap on flowers?
Flowers are pretty easy. They are often cross-pollinated, but you basically just want to wait till they're starting to shed their pieces and parts, and they're ready to go. And I usually recommend putting a bag over them before they start to shed. That way, you don't lose everything that way. So, mhm.
Well, I
But
learned a
yeah,
lot.
easy, easy peasy, lemon
I
squeezy.
if I were
Squeeze your
yeah,
lemon seeds
I
out.
would be attending if I were a Mercer County resident. I would be attending Jessica's class on seed saving for sure.
When is the date of that class, Jessica? Have you already got a
It
date set?
is coming up in September 9th. Does that make sense? So, early
Yeah.
September.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. If you are a Kentucky resident, I can't speak for other university extension systems, but if you're a Kentucky resident and you would like to see seed saving opportunities in your county, maybe reach out to your county extension agent and say, "Hey, I'd love to learn more." and I will bring a friend. And more than likely, they'll say, that is such great information for me to have. I appreciate that feedback, and I will execute it. Because, and if you haven't had that experience, try again or go to your neighboring county and ask them. All right. Well, we thank you guys for being here with us today. Follow us on Instagram at Hort Culture Podcast. Maybe I'll throw up, if anybody's got, Ray, if you've got a picture of a greasy bean that you grew, and maybe I'll throw up the Forkland coxcomb celosia photo just to show some of those heirlooms off a little bit. But you can follow us there on Instagram at Hort Culture Podcast. You can send us an email. We have a specific Gmail set up for that, and that's in the show notes. You can just click that and type away on your phone if you would like. We'd love if you left us a review. If you want to know more about seed saving specifically, and if that spring topic of how to plan your garden for seed saving is something you're interested in, write it in the review, and that'll help other people find us. So that makes the algorithm happy, and there's some keywords there that'll help other people interested in seed saving listen to our podcast, which is always super helpful. And we appreciate all of you that have been doing that. But we thank you for joining us, and we hope to hear from you next time.